Hi, I'm Robert. This is my final presentation for the game library system. Uh, the requirements that we were given was we have to make a library with at least 6 variables. We have to be able to import entries from a file, um, add entries manually. We need to be able to remove entries, edit variables of an entry, display all data of the entries printed out. We have to have a custom action and can't crash at all, exit when the user chooses, and then we're going to use a GUI and a relational database to hold the entries there. I decided to do one on games because I was interested in getting some old PC games, and was losing track of what was in my backlog, and who made what. And I like to keep track of that stuff. It lets me focus in on maybe a certain genre or a certain creator. Play all the games that he directed. Uh, so some important context for that would be the name of the game for sure. The director, like I was saying, like Hideo Kojima. He made Snatcher and Police Nuts, so maybe I want to go through his games. The genre, that's going to be important too. If you just want to play visual novels or stealth or whatever, or action, the release date is important. That'll give you a context for when the game came out, what the competition was like at the time, the launch price, the current price, and the discount. The launch price will give you context for you know if it's a short game that costs $100, they'll give you an idea on why it didn't do so well, or maybe why it did so well. And the current price, how much you can get it for now, that's really important for like games with modern pages. And then the discount, I like to get games on the discount. I like to keep track of that on my Steam store, so that way I can get it at an opportune time, save some money. Uh, some of the factors that went into the implementation of this program was I was having an interest in SQLite. I just watched some videos on it, and it seemed interesting uh, on how it was kind of an upgrade in SQL. I thought that was really cool. I thought that the mode view controller, I thought that was really interesting, like architecture in the book. So I wanted to implement that. And I was seeing that Java Swing was a good starting point for like UI design because it's built into the default Java IDE. So I thought that'd be great. Uh, I wanted to make the game with 3 main classes, like the input handler class that would communicate with the GUI, the game list that would have all the functions and that would communicate with the game entries. Uh, the the input handler would interact with the GUI. The game, that would just handle the data, the actual data. So this is how I plan to implement everything. This is my implementation diagram here. Uh, so we start out with the main class just leads into input handler class, goes to that game list. The game list handles everything, all those game variables. At the time I didn't have a plan for the GUI really. I was hoping to implement it with the input handler. Maybe have like a separate class that would handle all that. This is a mock-up of what I wanted the graphical user interface to look like. It was very simple because I've never made one before, so I thought that this might be a good place to start. For this presentation, I made this little mock-up. This is just a more general idea of what the architecture actually ended up looking like by the end of it. So with the GUI, I ended up having a bunch of different classes for each graphical user interface that it communicates between. Um, so it more goes in between the input handler and the game list, as you can see there. And then you have the tools class at the bottom for more general functions. I wanted every class to have it, so they could just import the tools class. This is a testing plan for my adding entries into my adding entries into the list. So I just did like a general, whether this thing works, whether it doesn't, if it's valid, if it's not, go here, send this message. So this way I would have a good place to start by checking each one of these little diamonds here, make sure that it's correctly pointing me to the correct route here. And so I had a plan for each of these, so that way I could, just have a good place to start on my tests. Hit every correct and incorrect option, and most importantly, try everything, and then do it again and again and again and again until it starts to work correctly. These were the phases that I had to implement the program in. So I started with the manually adding of game objects, removing, and then printing out. So it's very basic. Then we went on to adding in the special features like importing from a file, and searching, editing, adding a discount, displaying, printing out everything, which actually was in the last one. We printed out in the first step. So in the third step, I added in the graphical user interface. So I just tied everything into a GUI. Before, this all has been done with a queue, or really like a linked list, a dynamic linked list, because I thought that was the best way to approach it. So I use into the graphical interface. This is just putting everything in a way that you don't have to use the text, the command line to do everything. After that, we implemented the SQLite, or I implemented the SQLite storage system. So that replaced my linked list. I could get rid of that and just put in my SQLite storage system. At the end, I ended up still keeping the linked list and kind of working with it. I kind of repurposed it to use it in a different way. But I pretty much replaced it for the functionality with the database. So for the actual deployment, I had a hard time, figuring out, getting the settings correct. I think kept resetting my settings, and then it wouldn't mark this correct files and everything. And then I also, before deployment, especially for the GUI one, I decided to add in thumbnails at the last minute. That was a pain in the butt. And then just, I would create the file, I would test it out, make sure everything works, create the jar file, test it out, something wouldn't work again, so I'd go back, fix it, export it, test it out, something wouldn't work, and I would just kind of repeat this process. That was the process of deployment, yeah. This is what it looked like in my the first draft before we implemented the GUI. So this is kind of like the way that the implementation went from my perspective. So so in the first, the simple database manipulation, I found it pretty easy because it was pretty similar to the project that we did before. My UI, I didn't think worked the best for the text, I guess. I could see I definitely had more of a graphical user interface on mine. So for the next step, I had a hard time, working on that UI and making it easier to understand. And I was thinking, how can I load files but not save them? Wouldn't it be easier if I could just save the files? So I ended up implementing a whole save file system because that's what made sense for where I was at, not looking at the future. And I ended up getting rid of that later, For the graphical user interface, I had a tough time because it's my first time implementing that. So especially I tried just using Swing plain out. That gave me a hard time, so I ended up having an editor in the IntelliJ editor there. And so that ended up creating a class for each window. So that's why I ended up having so many classes for that graphical user interface. Implementing the SQLite system, I had a pretty easy time. I had a little bit of experience with database management using that language. I never used SQLite directly, but it was pretty easy once I get the hang of it. I've never done it before, so it was a great learning experience. And like I said, I could pretty much replace the current queue. It's still there. It still does a few things, but it's mostly replaced. It just does different things now. I also added a game browser and a file browser. I think that made things a lot easier instead of having to type everything out. So something that I learned with this project, was definitely planning, the importance of planning. I've always done it for like clarity's sake, or for fun. But I found it like really helpful for this project. In the areas that I didn't plan so much, I had a really tough time. So things like the GUI, the SQLite, but I pretty much planned in the database, so it was a lot easier. But the GUI especially, that was tough because I didn't plan anything on that. I was just I'd figure it out when I get there. And adding in functions like the image function, that was a pain in the booty because I didn't plan for it. But I thought, man, this would really make the graphical user interface pop, make it more interesting. So I just really learned the importance of that. In terms of hurdles, my biggest challenges were just figuring out how to do the GUI, especially. That was really tough. And then the early parts of implementing the database. Of course, the user accessibility, the user interface accessibility. I think I have a bit of a tough time with that. I spend a lot of time with random programs online, so I have a lot of tolerance for a bad GUI, I think. Also, adding in features like things I feel like, oh, I need this, but do I really? That's tough for me. I always want to add in something. Something I really learned from this was, like I said before, not just for school and work, but for fun as well. I think it's really important to plan out better than I have previously. I thought that making diagrams really made things clear for the architecture of the data. And I'm definitely going to be utilizing that in the future for all my future projects. Because that really let me visualize everything, and it made it easier to code it. Even though it changed a lot from the beginning, I think that'll be a great resource to use in the future.